Welcome back to another episode of the Storm Before the Calm podcast. I am your host, Lori Grace Bailey. I'm really excited, though, to bring to you today a friend, Andrew Guidarelli. I hope I said that right, Andrew. Did I say that right? Please tell me.
Guidarelli, close enough.
Guidarelli, thank
I
you.
think it probably was Guidarelli before they came over
Okay.
on the boat, and then it got
Yeah,
Americanized,
I'm terrible with names, so I appreciate you. Andrew Guidarelli is here. He is an airplane pilot, a storm chaser, a weather aficionado, and we've already been talking for a long time, so I'm really excited to pick your brain here today. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've seen some of the previous episodes that were really good, and I'm excited to be the next one.
We are looking to wrap up this first season. I'm really proud to have been able to get past that. And I'm just so glad that you and I could actually connect. One of the first times that I actually talked with you, I don't know if you remember this, you were surprised that I even still had your number, but I was the Encino, New Mexico tornado. And it started off coming off of the 7,000-foot hills of east of Albuquerque near Klein's Corner. And I think I texted you like, Andrew, this is where I want to be. And I'm just not feeling the push to go down to Roswell where everybody else is. And you were like, go where you need to be, go where you think is a good spot. If you're seeing the share, if you're seeing all that. And that gave me the confidence to make sure that what, I'm going to stick around. That was the boost that I needed. And I ended up getting to see this amazing, incredible Encino tornado that had two, right? It was the clockwise and the anticyclonic tornado that popped up right in front of me. So it was wonderful.
And you saw it and I didn't. So I helped you see a tornado that I didn't even see myself.
Where were you at the time when you told me to go for it?
I think that was the crazy Clovis week, wasn't it? I think I just stayed in San John, New Mexico and barely moved for about 5 days, just back and forth between there and Clovis.
Do you remember
and
that
didn't
Camp
get any
Clovis?
tornadoes that week, but got some nice structure. That was fun. That was a fun week of storm chasing. There weren't any, there wasn't one day in specific that was super good, but it was just back to back to back. It was a lot of fun. I like New Mexico. I like green chili. So I won't complain about being able to, even a bad chase in New Mexico was still a good chase. I love that state.
I totally agree. I think northeastern and middle northeastern New Mexico is really fantastic. But as you get closer towards like Farmington and some of those Hobbs, that is
southeast
not very
is no
pretty.
Good. Keep me out of the oil fields.
Yeah, absolutely. It stinks. Yep. You smell either cow or you smell oil.
But northeast New Mexico is one of the most beautiful places in the entire United States.
Goodness.
I love the driving from when you cross in from like Tex Line and you end up in New Mexico on, I think it's 287, maybe 87, through Clayton and all the way up to the Raton Mesa, and you got the volcano on the right side there, Capulin volcano, and then you drive up into Colorado. That's one of my very favorite places in the world. I love that area so much.
Well, Capulin is it's magical when you're up there and you get to see, it's kind of right on the boundary a lot, right? Too, of that warm, moist air coming in. And then you have those dry westerlies, the EMLs, like trying to kick up just garbage, and you have that mixture. But then, you see the cloud bases are so high, the cumulus. But then as the day progresses, things kind of the magic starts to happen there as it goes eventually towards Kim, Colorado, and that area where,
And then the local terrain effects are interesting. I think Capulin Volcano is outside of South Florida, the place with the most frequent lightning in the entire United States. And most people don't realize that. It's a local combination of, because the storms are already uplifted from the Raton Mesa, and then Capulin is another 1,000-foot cinder cone volcano.
Absolutely.
That gives it even more lightning. So yeah, it's a cool, one of my fantasy shots. I won't call it a dream shot. A dream shot has to be realistic, right? But a fantasy shot would be a tornado right next to the Capulin volcano. That would just be, be so cool.
Yeah, we went back the next day and I did a time lapse, and there was just storms were kind of murky and stuff. It was still a beautiful time lapse, and I never even shared that time lapse. Maybe in the future I'll share that, but it really is a magical place, and it's not a bad place to hang out though. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of a bit of a jack of all trades in my life. I am a pilot. I'm a certified flight instructor. I work here at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio.
Amazing.
Where I've been working for the past 3 years, but I've lived in Athens for 11 years now, which is hard to believe. I've been here for that long. I also work part-time with another job, and then I storm chase. I sit on a city council commission that involves walking and bicycles in my city. So I kind of have a bunch of part-time. I don't do anything full-time, but I have a bunch of part-time sources of income and volunteer things that kind of add up to me being I basically am busy 50 or 60 hours a week, but it's with a bunch of different things. And I'm actually moving to
Wow.
New York City in August. This is my last 2 weeks here at Ohio University, and I'm going to be
Wow.
getting a master's degree at City University of New York in public administration, and hopefully trying to help advocate for more sustainable forms of transportation, whether that be electric airplanes, high speed rail, something like that. So I'm kind of going to combine my passion for the environment. It's fitting we're recording this the day after Earth Day with my passion
Yeah,
for
right?
flying and kind of try to advocate for a better future in the transportation field. So yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. I do a lot of things.
That's pretty ambitious too, is to be able to do all those different things, but you have a goal in mind, and that's amazing to be able to set a new goal too, because being a pilot, that has to be pretty cool, no? Like, I've always wanted to be able to fly. I wanted to be a pilot when I was young, and then they told me, "Oh, no, if you have to wear glasses, you can't be a pilot." Of course, that was all bunk. I know, I know.
Yes.
What are you rated for as far as planes? I know there's
So I
different
have
ratings.
my obviously my private pilot's rating, my instrument rating, my commercial rating, which is all required to, work as a pilot. And then I have my multi-engine rating, my flight instructor's rating, my instrument instructor's rating. I think when I'm in New York, I'm going to try to pick up a multi-engine instructor's rating.
My goodness.
So I have all those. I also recently in December I went to Florida and got my seaplane endorsement. So I'm now rated to fly seaplanes as well. Although I only have a couple hours in them, so realistically, if I wanted a job doing that, I'd have to get some more experience. But I do have the rating. Yeah, I mean, there's other ratings out there. I kind of want to get my tailwheel endorsement someday, and then I once I hit 1,000 hours of flight time, I can work as a airline transport pilot. So while I'm in grad school, I want to find a way to keep flying, inch towards my 1,000, and long term, potentially fly jets, whether it's for cargo or for the airlines or something like that. But there's so many jobs outside of that in aviation too.
Yeah.
Combined with my MPA work, who knows? Who knows? I'm not really sure what I'll be doing in 5 years or 10 years, but I'll definitely have a lot of options with all the pilot ratings.
That's amazing too. So it sounds like you're currently on the unicycle though, and you're juggling, the machete and the bowling ball and the burning axe or whatever. You're
Yep,
just juggling all those different things. How are you
and it's a
able
lot.
to? Yeah, I was going to say, how are you able to maintain that? Because there's a cadence that you have to be able to do. You know, to maintain
Yeah.
all of that.
It's hard because I got a balanced time for both of my jobs, and then luckily my second job is remote and it's kind of like asynchronous, so you can kind of work on it whenever you have time. So that's good. But, I also, as I said, I'm on a city council commission, that's non-paid, but it's appointed by the city. So, I feel a responsibility to the citizens of my town to, make sure I'm doing my job there. And I'm actually president of a couple of like activist organizations in Athens, and I do a lot of stuff in my local community. And then you want to have a social life on top of that, right? So you have friends that you want to
Exactly.
hang out with. And
Yeah.
great thing about Athens is that I knew I would somehow make this about walkable cities because that's what it always comes back to with me. But Athens, like all my friends live within like a couple of blocks from me. A bunch of them I went to
Wow.
college with. Some of them I didn't, but they just live here. It's nice. Every time I go out the door, I see like five people I know. So then you end
That's
up
cool.
talking to someone for like an hour, and it's just a lot of places in America don't really have community
Hmm.
like in other countries or like how we used to, but a lot of
Yeah.
college towns are places that still do. And
Mm.
that's one thing I really am going to miss about living here, but I think New York will have that as well. So it's hard to balance
Yeah.
it all. And then, storm chasing on top of that, right? It's a whole thing. I was lucky when I was in college for so many years. My program took much more than 4 years and then COVID happened. So I was lucky to get summer breaks where I could go chase. Last summer was the first summer that I didn't get to chase full time. But now with grad school, I'll be able to chase. I'm leaving on May 3rd. I'll be able to be out the whole season. And then summer,
Right
I'll get
on.
I'll get summer breaks in grad school too, which
Cool,
will be
cool.
June. It'll be just June, but I'll still get ample time to chase. So yeah, it's that answer was a lot, but my life is a lot right now, and I'm
No,
honestly
that's
kind of looking
perfect.
forward to having a less to juggle in the next year. I think I'm ready for a little bit less.
Absolutely. I would love to be able to meet you too finally in the, out in the wild somewhere under a meso somewhere, or busting like is common. But you did miss last year. I only got to chase for 4 days last year, but I did see the Narra Vista storm, and I did see the little tornado on Texoma, that little line. I saw that little bitty tornado, but it was great. It was for 4 days. It was, and I'm saying chasing. But this year I'm really excited to be able to be out there too. So are you looking to be able to, at least with your busy schedule, once you move to New York, are you still planning on chasing as much as you can?
Yeah, the master's program I'm going to, their finals week is in late May, and that is unfortunate because most colleges'
Oof.
finals week is at the beginning of May, so that
Yeah.
misses me some May chasing. But so I'm going to be Juning for the next couple of years in 27 and
Okay.
28. But honestly, my hot take is that June is better than May. Most of those like highly
Yeah.
photogenic tornadoes are not in May; they're usually in
Right.
June. So it'll save me some money too, not chasing, 10 weeks and only chasing 5, so it'll be fine. And then, long term, I mean, I'd love to find a job where I mean, the dream job would be one where I can chase all May and all June forever. That would be,
Right.
whatever job I could work that out with. But, I got the next 3 seasons figured out. We'll go from
Nice.
there when 2029 rolls around, but that's a while from now.
Well, I mean, you talk about weather now and you're a pilot, you have a lot of passions. What made you or how did you develop that passion for storm chasing? Because by the time I met you, you were already you were able to forecast, you're able to target, you're able to run the numbers basically mathematically and come up with a target and be confident in all that and learn a lot about situational awareness and the how to chase, right? There's more than forecasting, but then there's the how to's, and you already knew all that. How did you develop that passion, and then how did you move forward into pursuing that?
So yeah, we got the passion and we got the skills. So I can break that down
Yeah,
into 2 parts.
sure.
So the passion for weather was always there. When I was a little kid, especially, it's funny, most people think that my favorite weather is tornadoes, but it's actually not true. My favorite weather is snow. There's nothing that makes me
Eesh.
happier than cold, snowy winters. We had a great
No,
winter here in Athens. We had a week where it was -10 for like a week straight. And I'd go for walks in the morning and it'd be like 5 below and the snow
my
was
goodness,
crunching. And I dated a girl who called me Arctic Fox once because of how much I liked
how funny.
the snow. So
Yeah,
that was always my favorite weather and loving winter storms. And I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, which was, now I'm in Southern Ohio. So I was a little bit closer to Lake Erie. So we'd get lake effect and all kinds of terrain induced stuff from the Appalachians. And, it was like the best day of my life when we would get 10 inches or whatever when I was a kid,
yeah,
and that kind of blossomed into a love for all kinds of weather. So, even as a little kid, a big storm would come through. We'd get, Western PA, you'd get a couple supercells, a couple derechos. I never saw a tornado there, but as a kid, there were still some decent storms, and I just liked all of it. I liked everything about weather. And then, I'd watch like storm chasers on the TV on Discovery, like everyone else did back then, and kind of just loved it. I knew I always wanted to storm chase. It was
yeah,
like a bucket list item. I didn't think I'd become like a storm chaser to this extent. I just wanted to see a tornado, right? And
right.
and as you know, you do it once and then it's like a drug, you got
Well,
to do it.
yeah,
And you can never have enough, right?
sure.
But I minored in meteorology when I was in college because it was only a couple, you already had to take some meteorology classes for the aviation degree, which makes sense. Pilots have to know we're up in the sky, right? So we have to know a
Hmm.
lot about it. I wanted to minor in meteorology. One of the classes for that was actually a storm chasing class taught by, I gotta give a shout out to Dr. Jana Hauser, who is now up
Wow,
at Ohio State University. She still lives in Athens, and she taught at OU. So I had her for mesoscale meteorology, and I got to take her mesoscale class, and then I was going to take
cool.
her storm chasing class. Well, that happened to be in a year called 2020, and the
Ugh,
storm chasing class got canceled. So I
yeah.
said, "Well, screw it. I'm going to go out by myself." I took I'm ready for this. I
Mhm.
took her meteorology class. This was before I'd taken mesoscale, but I knew a thing or two. So I'm going to go out by myself. Went out 2020, storm chased, saw nothing because there were no good storms that year. That was like the worst year for storms ever. And then, COVID on top of it, having to social distance on the road, it was
Yeah,
just a nightmare. So then 2021 came around, finally saw my first tornado, and that's how I, kind of just got hooked. So the
yeah.
passion was always there. And then, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's funny. I presented with Skip Talbot at the Storm Chaser Summit a couple
I
months
saw
ago.
that. Yeah.
And one of the first things I did to educate myself was watch his videos. So now it's cool that I'm presenting with someone who I, formerly learned from. But it's really because people like him and Jana Hauser and Cameron Nixon and people like that, I learned a lot from. And I would just study meteorology. I mean, there'd be like a Mississippi setup and I wouldn't chase it. I would
Yeah.
just stay at home and I'd make like hand drawn maps and whatever.
Mm.
And that's how I would learn.
These big names are people who end up helping us so much that they become someone that we really look up to, and that must have been really cool to be teaching alongside Skip Talbot. Not only though is Skip such a iconic person in storm chasing, especially for storm safety, but he's also an airplane pilot also, and he has his own experimental plane. I think his father gave to him, if I'm right there. but he has an experimental plane. He goes out, he still flies. Is that something you enjoy? You still enjoy doing?
Everything becomes work.
Hmm.
Even flying an airplane becomes work. Even if you're a professional storm chaser becomes work. But yeah, I still enjoy it. I mean, there's days where I could be having a bad day. I come to work, I'm up flying. Southeast Ohio, foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. It's beautiful here. Sun setting. I'm over the green rolling hills,
Wow.
and I'm just like, well, I could have a worse job,
Yeah.
Like my life could be better, but it definitely could be way, way worse. And yeah, that kind of wonder never really fully goes away as a pilot. No matter how much you fly, it's still pretty amazing to think that, I mean, humans looked at birds for millennia,
I
for
know.
over 100,000 years and thought, how do we do that? And then, we figured it out. And now it's just like a casual thing we do. And it always amazes me when I'm on an airliner and someone like isn't looking, someone's in the window seat. They're not staring out the window when they're coming
Hmm.
into land. I'm like, you're flying. You're freaking flying. Like,
Right.
this
I
is the
know.
crazy. You take someone from 1,000 years ago, they'd slap you in the face for not being amazed by it.
I
And now
know.
we're
I
just
know.
like, it's normal. I'm like, it is not normal. This is not normal. This is
I
incredible.
I
We're
did see a
living in sci-fi
comedian.
movie.
I know, right? First world problems, first
Yep.
world complaints. I did see a comedian a few years ago talk about that. Like, oh, this sucks. I have to fly coach. They put you in this tube out of all of creation, out of all of humanity. We're in this tiny little section where we actually get to experience flight. And here we are bitching and complaining about, oh, there's a baby crying in the back or this and that. And you look at that window and even if it's just a tiny window, or if you're looking across because somebody else has the window seat, you still get to marvel. You still get to fly through the air. It's just funny that that's the case, that we find anything to complain about when there's so much more reality though that we have to worry about. But you talked about the experience and the awe of learning to fly. I have to bring in the song though. My
Pink
my
Floyd.
favorite band, Learning to Fly. That was David Gilmour's. I think it was Polly Sampson who helped him write, his wife. And for anybody just starting here, that I am the biggest Pink Floyd fan, so I could talk about anything and everything except the Sid Barrett years. Andrew is a huge Floyd fan as well. And I love, by the way, I love that more people are talking about music and different things related to storm chasing because we listen to music all the time. But learning to fly, like, what's your favorite? I'm going to switch gears real quick because I love everything Pink Floyd. You're always posting some Pink Floyd stuff as well. What's your favorite Floyd album?
Oh, Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, I know it's cliche, but I think it's the greatest album ever made. It's so cohesive. The way it's about life, the way that
Hmm.
you can sit down. I'm a record player, and I will literally sit down at nighttime, turn all the lights off in my
Listen to the
apartment,
whole
put my
thing.
headphones on to the record player, plug in the vinyl, drop the needle, and just listen to the Dark Side of the Moon.
Hmm.
It's two songs, side A and side B, right? I don't
Right.
know about any of these they break down what's your favorite song. I'm like, it's not songs, it's halves. There's two halves
It's
to
an
that
entity.
album.
Right.
There's side one and side two, and it tells a story, and
Hmm.
it's just, I love listening to it at nighttime after a storm chase. I
Mm.
love listening to it flying. I have certain albums I listen to when I'm flying, and it's like it's
Cool.
perfect, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's like it's probably, I would say, I don't know if I would say it's my favorite album of all time because, like, meaning certain albums are more meaningful than others, like
Right.
for
Right.
personal reasons. But I think it's the best album of all time, which is
Really,
subjective, of
especially
course.
for
But
Pink
I think it's the
Floyd.
best
I,
by
I, I
anyone,
can't
by
diss you
anyone.
for that. Yeah, I can't diss you for saying that the Dark Side of the Moon because there's so much beauty to it. When I was in high school, I loved listening to Pink Floyd. My dad was the one. He was in a band. He was a leader of a band called Don Bailey and the Fugitives. It was great. Country boys playing Johnny B. Good and some other stuff, fun stuff. But he got us into Pink Floyd because we were always listening to Pink Floyd in the boat when we'd go fishing at Elephant Butte Lake State Park. And so naturally, this young kid, here I am, this really young kid listening to this music and the fish biting as soon as he puts on Pink Floyd. Different story. It was really magic. He puts Pink Floyd on, the fish would start hooking onto the line. But learning to listen to that when I was in high school, I actually, for my high school English thesis, it's like eight page paper or whatever, nothing big or whatever, but in English we had to write this paper, and it was on time and ticking away the moment and the meaning of it. And then I actually got to present it to the class. And I just remember how proud I was of breaking down Pink Floyd's Time. And everybody's like, what is
Yeah.
this? This is your paper? And I started off, I brought in my little tape deck and little 2-player tape recorder and played the song first. And my English teacher just sat there. And after I presented it all, he was like, wow, that is amazing. And he just like told the class, I got an A in the class. And but to present on speaking and breaking down what time really means, and you run to catch up with the sun, but it's sinking and racing around to come up behind you again. The sun is the same in the relative way, but you're older and shorter of breath and one day closer to death. That's me today, Andrew.
Yeah.
Freaking A. It's the reason I chase. It's everything,
I've
right?
lived in Athens for 11 years. And 10 years ago, I was a freshman at Ohio University, and now I'm about to leave. It's funny, I graduated college like 5 years ago. Well, three years ago. I graduated in the end of 2022. So yeah, I guess it's been 3.5 years since I graduated. But I lived here 11, and that line of, and then you find 10 years have got behind you. No
Oh my
one told you
God.
when to run. It's like, well, I
You
lived here
missed the
for
starting
just 10
gun.
years ago was when I was a freshman here. And now I'm finally leaving my college town after a decade of being here. So that line really, right now, specifically that decade time frame, it really, it really resonates. And it's just like that album, it never gets
Mhm.
old.
Right.
And it just like, it's so relevant to everything.
Yeah.
And Time is really good. But I think my favorite Pink Floyd
Us
song,
and
my
them.
favorite part of Dark Side of the Moon is Us and Them. I think it's
I
just the
said it.
most
Did you hear
beautiful
me
song
whisper? I
ever.
said us and them, and you
Yeah.
said it. Yeah, I kind
Yeah.
of thought you would like us and them too, and that is so iconic as well. And I could break it down, but I don't want to go too long into talking about Pink Floyd. What other bands though? You said you love music in general, though. You said you have different other favorite albums. Like real quick, name 3 other albums that are easily iconic for you that you would
Yeah.
never live without.
It's really funny because actually, I wrote like a thing in my phone notes app 10, I think it was 10 albums that if I had to, like, my brother and I talk about like top 10 list all the time.
Hmm.
So I think I did like, if I could only listen to 10 albums for the rest of my life and all the rest of the albums were like deleted from existence, what would be the albums that I would listen to?
Okay.
And I said, so Dark Side of the Moon is one
Right.
of the ones on the list. The Joshua Tree by U2 is
Wow.
another one. Just, I mean, that one to me is really meaningful because that was my like every teenager has like their band. And that was my
Hmm.
band as a teenager. So that was the
Nice.
kind of that's how I got into music. This is a little lesser known, but Valtari by the band Sigaros. It's like an Icelandic kind of avant-garde rock band. Really good. Ruins by my favorite band of all time, First Aid Kit. It's these two sisters from Sweden that have this amazing like folk rock harmonies,
Wow.
country folk, amazing. Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers. That one is huge. Those who know me really well know why that one's meaningful. It's that one's really special. I would go Gregory Alan Isakov and the Colorado Symphony. He took a bunch of his original folk songs and recorded it with the Colorado Symphony. Phenomenal. Lost in a Dream by The War on Drugs. It's another rock band. They're really good. I'd go for Emma Forever Ago by Bon Iver. That's a
Hmm.
beautiful, I love listening to that one in the wintertime in the snow. And then I would go Pico's Hank, his self-titled album with Drive Under the Moon on it, because that's
Hmm.
my Storm Chasing album, right? So
Oh, funny.
that one's just
Wow.
super special because of chasing. And finally, I gotta end it with the one that was really my childhood album, which was the Wildlife Concert by John Denver. Both of my
Really?
parents were big John Denver people. And when I was a kid, our family vacation every year was to Blackwater Falls, West Virginia, Canadian
Hmm.
Valley and Blackwater Falls. And when we'd cross the border from PA into West Virginia, we'd always play Country Roads. So it's funny because
Wow.
everyone knows that song, but
Yeah.
I kind of am snobby about that song because I'm like, well, you guys just know it because it's popular. I knew it because I learned it in West by God, Virginia, and you didn't. So I claim that song a little more personally
Wow.
than
No kidding. A
so
little bit
yeah, those
more
are
of a
the you said 3 and
hometown
I gave you
song.
10, but I had
You
the list
did, you
ready to
did.
go.
But
So,
it tells me how important music is in your own, not only in your life, but in your growth as your mental growth, your spiritual growth, so to speak, as far as just bringing you to the place that you are today, right?
yeah.
I think
I'm a
that's
big
more of,
music person and like most of my like I know most people sit in bed and like watch Netflix, but I don't. I lay in bed and listen to music. That's my entertainment. I don't watch much TV. I don't really watch
yeah.
movies. I mean, I'll enjoy a movie from time to time, right? But in a year I probably watch like 5 new movies every year. That's it.
Wow.
I'm always listening to music though. And it's
That's
situational. So like those
absolutely.
10 albums I listed, I don't listen to them throughout the year the same amount.
Yeah.
When I'm listening to Pico's Hank's album, that's when I'm storm chasing,
Hmm.
right? Like certain albums are seasonal, certain albums are more in the fall, in the winter, different
Yeah.
occasions, different things that I'm doing, daytime versus nighttime.
Yeah.
right? So it's situational on a lot of things.
Absolutely. That's funny. And as far as music on the road, I love listening to different playlists. I'm a hard rock girl from the '80s, so roll up the Levi's buttons and Air Force Ones or whatnot. But back in the '80s, but also I like to listen to George Strait every album when I'm
Yeah.
going from Arizona to
Yep.
Southern Colorado. That's a long time of driving, and I'll just put on George Strait, and I can sing them all too. But you don't want to hear that. But the other thing about music is I finally got my keyboard back here. You can see it here.
Ah,
And I have my guitars here and I love singing and making music. I was a worship leader for several different Christian churches throughout the years. And, I'm finally comfortable getting back into just being myself again with the music as well. And it's so integral when it comes to me and chasing and just me in general. I'm so emotional about things and I can listen to even today. In fact, after we tweeted about Pink Floyd Pulse yesterday, I went back and rewatched Comfortably Numb and reimagining seeing David Gilmour playing the guitar, the solo to the second solo. There's two solos of Comfortably Numb. And during the stadium, the Sun Bowl, there is this giant ball. It's a disco ball. And the disco ball opens up and it mushrooms into a rose. And inside that rose is just all these extremely bright lights and it's blinding. And I know I'm going to go to my deathbed. And that's going to be one thought that goes through it because it was that magical. And
yeah.
as I was watching the video yesterday, I was in tears. Like it
Yep.
still brings me to tears. And I'm learning that to play that on the keyboard too. So I Comfortably Numb's great,
It's
but my all-time favorite song still is "Shine On You, Crazy Diamond." I just love
Yeah,
it.
those are great too. It's funny because you replied, that was a reply to my tweet about when you two did Where the Streets Have No Name at Slane Castle in Ireland in
Yeah.
2001. And that is like, people say like Dark Side of the Moon is the best album of all time. It's not even the best Pink Floyd album. You hear
Hmm.
that. And it's like Where the Streets Have No Name at that concert is like the best performance by you two
Breakaway.
ever.
Yeah.
And it's not even the best performance in that concert because they also
Hmm.
played a song called Kite. And it's about, Bono wrote it about strained relationship between him and his father.
Hmm.
It's some long story. I don't know all the details, but that concert was 4 days after Bono's father passed away. So
Wow.
he was already full of emotion, and Ireland had won some big sporting event earlier in the day, so the crowd was already amped up. So there's context here. The Red Hot Chili
Yeah.
Peppers had opened for them, Coldplay and Red Hot Chili Peppers had opened for them, and he plays a song called Kite. And there's a line, "I'm a man, I'm not a child." And he dedicated that song to his dad. And when he sings that line, it's absolutely incredible.
Wow.
Like U2 at Slane Castle, they released that free album on everyone's phones and it made everyone hate them. And
Yeah, that was
people
a
in my
big mistake.
generation, I've been trying to convince them. I'm like, no, their music's actually really good. You gotta
It
get. I
really
know the
is.
free album thing was a mistake, but like you gotta get over that and like you gotta listen to their
It's
stuff
because they
because
forced it on us, man. You couldn't get it
yeah,
off your iPhone. You're like, come
it's
on, man, get this crap off my.
they hated U2 for it, but they didn't hate Apple for it, which I always thought was
That's true.
hypocritical. It's like,
Of
well, you won't
course.
listen to U2, go buy an Android though, because Apple also forced that onto your
Yeah.
phone, you know?
Right.
So like it's selective who they're hating there. But no, I think the Pink Floyd Pulse is amazing too, and that's just that Comfortably Numb is really good. And there's a cover band called Any Color, and they're a local band to Athens, Ohio,
Hmm.
and they just do Pink Floyd cover. And I saw them for the 50th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon, and they played the whole album. They basically did the Pulse set list. It was basically the Pulse set list,
Wow.
and it was like top 3 concert I've ever been to. These are
Right.
just a bunch
Right.
of local guys, and I've seen Brit Floyd, and these guys are better than Brit Floyd. That's
No
how good they
way.
are.
I was
So if
gonna
you want to see
suggest
a good ass Pink Floyd cover band, go to Athens, Ohio, and see Any
see Any
Color.
Color.
They are absolutely phenomenal, phenomenal.
Really.
Yep.
If I'm ever up that way and they're playing, I would love to see them. I haven't seen Australian Pink Floyd show, but I did get to see Brit Floyd 2 or 3 years ago here in Tucson, and it was the next best thing. It was incredible. My son. I took my son, and he still tells me and he reminds me. He goes, "Hey, remember when we went to go see that Pink Floyd cover band?" He goes, "That was something else." And he is not the biggest Floyd fan, but they have the whole spectacles too and the lasers, but the performance itself, the skill set that these guys have is incredible. And even when the Great Gig of this Gig in the Sky plays, it's just something. I always tear up when I listen to the Great Gig in the Sky because I have a feeling that when my soul leaves this body, that if that's playing, that also might be going through my mind when I'm exiting this corporate entity. So who knows? I don't know. I think I
If there
messed.
is any sort of heaven, there's definitely Pink Floyd music up there. That's
I
for
hope
sure.
so. What?
I
God,
don't want
no
to go
Pink
if it's not
Floyd?
there. I'm going to hell if there's no Pink Floyd.
Where's Rick Wright? She's Gilmore's not here yet. Maybe, I don't know. Gilbert just turned 80, by the way. So enough about music. I know I could make this whole podcast about music, and
Yeah.
maybe I'll just start having some music podcasts as well, because I could talk about music, my passion for it. But speaking of your passion, what is, getting back to chasing really quickly,
Yeah.
what is one of your most memorable experiences while chasing? Like, I know as
Yeah.
soon as I say that, everybody goes click, and you see their brain go, pull that memory feed from them, because they automatically know what one of their most memorable experiences was.
Well, I will say first off, I'm glad we talked about other things than chasing because I think we kind of alluded to this before we went live. But I think in the chase community, there's a mentality of like chasing as an addiction where it's just chase, 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 and to the point where people are in credit card debt and throwing away their jobs and their families and their careers for chasing, which is not just
Exactly.
a thing in storm chasing. I mean, like athletes do this, like all kinds of people do this. So it is important to be a
Absolutely.
well-rounded person and have stuff outside of chasing. But yeah, this is a chasing podcast, so
Well,
we can't
actually,
talk
it's not
about the
even
main
that,
topic here.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
the storm before the calm. We'll talk about some storms.
yeah.
But if I could pick one moment chasing, I mean, it's got to be El Dorado 2024. If you want to pull up the picture of it that I sent you, it's
Oh, yeah. Let's do
the big
that.
white cone
Okay.
tornado,
I'll do that right now.
and that was the one, kind of a story of redemption. So 4 days or 3 days or whatever before that, I was chasing in northeastern Colorado, and I got behind this really big line of storms, and it prevented me from getting to Greenfield, Iowa the next day to see the Greenfield high end F4 tornado. So I missed Greenfield. And of course, that was like a huge tornado in 2024.
Right.
And I was really bummed out. I was like, I didn't play it right. As a solo chaser, I'm not going to pull an all nighter to drive through the night. So I missed it. I ended up in Joplin, Missouri because I chased down there because that's what I could get to in time. Spent the
Yeah.
next day in Joplin, went to the memorial, just kind of like regathered myself mentally. There's only one time in my storm chasing, I've chased for 6 years, over 100 storm chases. There's only one time ever where I woke up 100% sure that I was going to see a tornado, and it was on May 23rd, 2024. Back to 23 being my lucky number. There you go. I woke
Oh,
up in
wow.
Joplin, drove to Tulsa, got coffee, went to Oklahoma City, saw the storms developing in Southwest Oklahoma on radar. And I go back to in 2022 when the first Morton tornado happened. There was a single cell to the north with a tornado warning and a hook, and then there was a cluster to the south. And I went to the north, and there's a couple of people that are watching this that are gonna. They always make fun of me for it because they were with me, and I make fun of them back because they made the same mistake. We went north, busted, and the big Morton tornado happened to the south. As I'm coming through Oklahoma City down the Bailey Turnpike, I saw the same exact radar setup, a northern cell with a big hook and a blob to the south. And I thought right back to 2022. I said, I know I've seen this film before,
Hmm.
and to quote Taylor Swift. And I drove to the southern stuff, got
Yeah.
ahead of it, perfect position, and then well, you can see it in the picture that El Dorado tornado happened. It was on the ground for 45 minutes. Incredibly beautiful. I got a
Wow.
ton of good pictures. It's the best tornado I've seen so far in my chasing. It's the most beautiful one I've
Right
seen.
on.
And it was a story of like that's why you don't give up, right? Like things
Yeah.
2 days ago, I was pissed off because I missed Greenfield. I had screwed up. And then I
Mm.
redeemed myself 2 days later with that. And this one was prettier than Greenfield anyway.
Where were you in the positioning of this tornado?
So I started just south of it, and it started as a multi-vortex tornado, and I watched it form right in front of me, and it was heading right at me. So then I had to go south to, get away from it, get out of the path. And the road network out there was pretty crappy. So I had to
Right.
circle around. I lost the tornado for 15 minutes. I come back to it, and that's when it tightened up, and that's when it formed that cone.
Wow.
I pulled over right as it fully condensed right in front of me. And then I have video and everything, and that's when I was
Very
able to
cool.
get out of my car and take all these pictures. And, it's nice when a tornado is moving slow enough. This is what's great about the planes is like I didn't have to stay in the car. I was standing outside when I took these
Yeah.
pictures. And
A lot of
I mean, those are the
people.
best.
Yeah. This was 2023, you said, or 24?
May 23rd,
2024.
2024.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I
Very
think,
few. I'm not a person to remember dates. There's not many dates I remember, but that is a specific date that I remember.
dang. So you were able to get that in. You identified that similar pattern. You saw what was going on, and you remembered. I've seen that as well, and I'm starting to feel at ease now when I see storm structures and on radar, and both visually and on radar. I'm only been chasing for a few years too, and it's just exciting to integrate that into your mind. And for me, I wouldn't even be able to explain it. I just go, like you said, I've seen this before. I know what this could be doing, and then engaging based off of that.
Yeah.
I love that
And it's
feeling.
field experience. I
Yeah,
mean, the first couple years I chased, my initial forecast targets were always really, 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 really good. And that was because I studied meteorology and I got to take classes under Jana Hauser.
yeah,
I learned so much from her. And, she was on El Reno back in the day. So she's, really well known in the academic world. So that gave me a really good foundational knowledge. But
hmm,
what she couldn't teach me, because there's no teacher that can teach this, and she would agree with this, is that you need field experience. You could have the best teacher in the world, but if you don't
hmm,
practice, you're not going to get good at anything. No
yeah,
matter how much classroom time you have to go out and practice it.
hmm,
So some of these men and women who have been doing this for 40, 50 years, that's why they're always on the right stuff, because they've seen it
yeah,
before and it becomes second nature. They don't even know scientifically why they did it. They just instinctually did it.
yeah,
It's gotten to that point with me. It's really interesting. I didn't even notice this until 2025, or really till 24, I guess. But now I can almost tell when a storm is about to tornado. I can feel it.
hmm,
I can feel the change in the air.
hmm,
I can see the curve start to form as the RFD starts to wrap around and it gets like arched. And it's so strange. It's like something like you're tingly, you're like
oh yeah, spidey
senses go up
senses.
and you're
Yeah,
like, something is about to happen. And I don't have a explanation why, but I just know that something is about to happen. And then a tornado happens. And I'm like, yeah, I was
yeah.
right. But that
Encino did
that
that to me.
classroom can't
Yeah,
teach you that. No one with
right.
a PhD can teach you that. Experience doing it is what teaches you that.
The experience, I love that you have to integrate, the on the job experience goes such a long way. And I worry that, that so many people are just like, no, no, I can do this with just, you know, just going out and doing it, and maybe following some people or whatever. I can't advocate enough for going out there with people who already have been doing this, or learning from those people as extensively as possible. I can't tell you, like, truly, truly, I've learned so much watching Skip's videos. I've watched him over and over and over again. And for me, safety is of utmost importance. No, I don't want to zero meet or a tornado. I'm not a part of that crowd. And if that's the crowd that you want to be in, you want to see that swirl right in front of you. You want to see the drill bit or the wedge right in front of you, and you can see the dominator right in front of you. That's your business. But I don't ever want to be that person, because I have a different mindset too. I also want to be able to capture structure, and I want to be back a little bit.
Yeah, that's really cool. And as you said, like, you kind of just develop an awareness for what's
Hmm.
happening the more you do it. And it's interesting because you don't have to think about it as much. When I keep handwritten notes of all my chases, still have the notebooks, and I have the notebooks from my mesoscale meteorology class in there. I have notes from Skip Talbot's videos in there. And every year I always still refresh myself academically.
Yeah.
Before I head out, I'm heading out on May 3rd. It's April 23rd as we record
Hmm.
this. I'm gonna go back and watch a Skip Talbot video. I'm gonna go back and read some of my notes from college, and
Cool.
I'm gonna review. Like, it's just like, I don't know. It's so interesting. It's just like it becomes second nature, and you don't even realize how you're doing it so good. But you just like, what you're doing. And I didn't get to chase much last year, but the days I did get to chase, I was like on par with everything. I chased on
Nice.
Sykeston Day, saw the Sykeston tornado, knew the exact right time with the road network to leave the storm,
Hmm.
drove up north into Illinois and saw the Marion tornado.
Wow.
And hardly anyone, I think I've only met one other person who saw both of those tornadoes. And so that was a big win.
Sure.
But as much as I'm
Good
bragging about
confidence
that, there's
booster.
plenty of other days I could brag. I could do the opposite of brag and
And
say how
that's
stupid I was. So,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
where I wanted to go with this as well too, because obviously I do like to talk about. I don't like to, but I think it's essential to talk about the setbacks. I think it's important to talk about how we got to where we are today, and how we ended up succeeding over being defeated. Instead of, or maybe we had to accept defeat and to get to where we are. I mean, that's the whole nature of the storm before the calm. The calm is the storm to me, by the way. I always tell people, I go, when we get to the storm, you're already there. You've already endured the things that you needed to endure or encountered, and you had to get through some stuff to get to. Every single person I've talked to, whether they're an extreme photographer, extreme weather, or they jump out of airplanes and extreme sports, they all have that same common entity, I think, that same common a spirit behind them is that they kind of went through some stuffs too. Could you go into maybe talking about some of those significant challenges that you've had to come through and endure to get to where Andrew is today? I mean, you're full of confidence. You're very vocal. You're not afraid to step into your power, and I love that about you. By the way, that's something that I admire about you. That you're not afraid to be an advocate. You're not afraid to step into your power and to take up space and to share, you know, to share the things that are important to you.
Yeah. Anyone who says it's easy is, lying. There's no one in life who's had it. You could have been born a very privileged person and still had to face a lot to accomplish anything,
Hmm.
But for me, the hardest thing was how long it took me to see my first tornado. That was the hardest thing for me was
Mm.
storm chasing because I picked the worst year ever, 2020, to start storm chasing.
Wow.
And it wasn't that's not a COVID thing. There were no tornadoes that year. Like May 2020 had like one photogenic
Oh my
tornado and it was an
goodness.
alternate target day in Texas that hardly anyone saw. And then June, like I think I chased like 4 days in June and then that
Man.
was it. I ended up going home early. I actually 2020 was so quiet that the forecast looked so bad. I drove back to Ohio during the last week of May because there was nothing to chase.
Wow.
That is insane. That's peak season. Who goes home in
Was
the
there
last week of May because
was
there's
there a
nothing
big
to do?
omega block? Is if I
I
remember
think some
correctly?
crap like that. I don't remember, but it was just like
Yeah.
that year was garbage. I think for tornadoes, I think the only Bassfield, Soso, Mississippi in like March was like the only actual big tornado that entire
Wow.
year. And I don't chase in the South because it's too many
Yeah.
trees. I have
Right.
enough trees chasing in Ohio and West Virginia around me. But
Yeah.
so no tornadoes in 2020. 2021 comes around, first couple weeks, no tornadoes. May 16th comes around. I'm in Northeast New Mexico, that beautiful area we talked about
Hmm.
at the beginning of the show. And I'm driving down and I'm taking a bunch of pictures. I'm just kind of screwing around, taking my time, just not doing a good job of like getting to the target, right? That's one of my like chase rules now is like get up at a certain time, get your ass to the
Right.
target.
So
I was just
important.
taking pictures of like other pop up storms. I missed the Earth Texas tornado. And I was so upset. I
Man.
pulled over on probably Highway 87 in Texas Panhandle. I was so upset. I didn't know if I wanted to cry or if I wanted to punch a hole through the window, because I
Wow.
was like anger and sadness at the same time. And
Hmm.
I was just like, I was about to be at a boiling point because I was in a Ford Fusion. I would recline the driver's seat and sleep in the Ford Fusion. I would just like I would hang up towels to block the windows, sleep at truck stops, shower at truck stops, like which I still mostly do. I still sleep in the
Hmm.
car, but now I have Subaru, so I actually have a nice like mattress in the back of the car. So now it's like actually nice car camping.
Yeah.
But this was like I was like basically living homeless on the road, because I didn't
Man.
have money for hotels. I was a college
Yeah.
kid. And all this sacrifice, all this effort to like be that close to a really nice tornado and miss it. Next day comes around May 17th, 2021. You can pull up this picture as well. This is the big storm with the tornado in the back. Um, I was in La Mesa, Texas, and this is the first time I ever met Matthew Capucci, who I've since become good friends with. And I convinced him actually to drive south because I said
Okay.
there was a target near Lubbock and there was a target south near Big Spring, Texas. And I said, let's go south. The dew points are like 66 there and 62 to the north, something like that. I don't remember numbers.
Okay.
So we go south and I'm thinking ahead of time and I saw a blob again. I saw a big blob and I said, there's going to be mergers. So I thought ahead of time. I punched through the stuff
Nice.
in the front of the blob and I went on a north south highway that was like 30 miles east of the blob. Everyone else was on this other road from the other side. So they end up stuck behind the blob because there's like no roads in this part of Texas.
Hmm.
And me and Matthew Capucci are the only two. This tornado, as it formed, my first ever tornado, me and Matthew Capucci were the only two people that had a clear angle of this tornado. Everyone else
Wow.
was behind it. It was moving at 5 miles an hour. And obviously, that insane mothership structure, the whole collar
Hmm.
cloud around it was just incredible. And I watched multi-vortex tornado for 45 minutes, slowly moving across Texas. And it was such a relief after 2 years of all these miles on the road and night sleeping in a sedan. It
Hmm.
was just like I was so happy. I think I literally was screaming, Texas, Texas, I love Texas. Like I was literally screaming at top of my lungs, Texas is
Oh
the
my
best.
goodness.
And it was just like it paid off. So That
Well,
was
so you had to
quite the
swallow your
tornado.
pride is what you're saying. You really had to swallow your pride and understand that there's gonna be pain, right?
Yeah, and then, the worst pain I'd say I've ever had as a storm chaser was last year because I chased full time meaning after the college semester would end. So May and
Yeah.
June, early July, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, full time. 2025 comes along. I'm like, all right, I need to stay in Athens. Like I got appointed to a city council commission. So I'm like, I have to be here for that.
Yeah.
Like I have responsibilities here,
Responsibilities. Yep. Uh-huh.
real adult responsibilities where I can't be gone for 2 months. I took my 2 weeks in May, which I regret not doing it in June because I used up my paid days off at my job and I had the good day with Marion.
Mhm.
Then I end up going to a Paul Simon concert in Milwaukee the day before Arnett, Oklahoma.
Nice.
Drive through the night, sleep in Des Moines for 4 hours, get to Arnett 30 minutes after that tornado lifted. So I drove from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, all the way to Western Oklahoma to see nothing, to see absolutely nothing. And I don't chase at night. So I watched the Plevna storm form and I said, that's going to be a wedge. I drove home and it was a wedge tornado. I don't care. It's at nighttime. I'm not in it for the nighttime stuff.
Yeah.
So I was already like, shoot, nothing else good
Painful.
happened. Finally go back home to Athens. Then, of course, June comes around and Wellfleet happens. Wellfleet to me is the best tornado that's happened since probably Dodge City 2016 anywhere. El Dorado was pretty good too, but that Wellfleet one was
I
just,
hear Wellfleet all the time.
perfect, perfect, perfect. I mean, that's is a like El Dorado's like an A plus tier tornado, but Wellfleet's like a true S tier tornado. And to miss that after
Ouch.
years of chasing full time to finally step back to do the right thing in my career
Mhm.
and then miss that tornado, it felt like I was being punished for doing like objectively the right thing in my life. And I'm like the most non-violent person ever. And I got so mad that I took a roll of paper towels and literally threw it across the living room because I was so mad about like seeing the videos on Twitter about that tornado.
Yeah.
Like I was like, damn, like this, it
Yeah.
really sucked. It got me so depressed that I didn't even have the mental energy to go chase 2 weeks later on a weekend in South Dakota. And then I missed Gary. So then it's like
Oh my
back to back.
goodness.
Miss
Everybody
Wellfleet.
keeps talking about Gary now in these podcasts. They're like, "Oh, I was at Gary. It was
Yeah.
amazing." And
And Gary was a
ouch.
good tornado, but like Wellfleet's that perfect cone. So like
Really.
Wellfleet, like, and,
People
those
will fight you
tornadoes are
for that.
rare. They don't come around very often, tornadoes that are that good. And to miss like, one of the greatest tornadoes of all time because of adult responsibilities, that gets back into like the addiction thing. And it's like, well, I
Yeah.
see how people throw away everything for chasing,
Mhm.
but I just try to remind myself, like, I try to justify it. I'm like, had I not stayed there, had I not
Yeah.
gotten on the council commission and I interned under a council member, had I not worked this job, I wouldn't have had the money or the grad school acceptance I've had to move to New York City. So like missing that tornado was consequential in me getting to do this. But even still, I'm still pissed off that I missed it. And it's been almost a year. And like I see pictures of it, I scroll past. I can't even look at pictures of that tornado. I
I
still
can't
can't look at pictures of that
I
tornado.
can't look at Silverton. I was
Yeah.
in Lubbock and there was that high risk or a higher risk in uh, northwestern Kansas, Colby area. I was like, oh, I'm going up there, and I left Lubbock the night
Yeah.
before. That morning, drove all the way up to Kansas, totally got skunked, and looking in the car and I see Silverton. Right, how close to Silverton is like very close. That was a secondary target. I was like, no, let's go we got to go big or go home. Well, I went home. I didn't go big, and then I saw everybody on Silverton, scoring. I saw Reed destroying the end of his Dom 5 or whatever the Subi, and I was just like, this sucks. This hurts.
Was
It
that
still
one.
hurts.
I do remember
I
that
can't
one.
look at pictures of Silverton
Yeah.
anymore. It was a beautiful tornado. It was out in the oil fields and stuff. And I'm still pissed though, because I don't have that many days of the year, but at least
Yeah.
back then before I was retired, and now I do. But I still know too that I don't want to chase all the time. That's why I have these other hobbies. I need variety, but I need to know that I can't put everything, my entire idea of success into one thing, because if I do, I'm going to come crashing down. I struggle with mental wellness as it is. I'm open about it. I've suffered from depression. I've suffered from so many different things. And then the world is cruel to you too, right? You're just trying to survive. So it's essential for me to protect my peace. And it sounds like that you've done the right things, but you've also had to swallow your pride. And I think that's so important. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that there's a growing rank of storm chasers who feel like they have to chase it all, that they have to
Well,
never stop chasing. Why do you think that is? And I'm not picking on Reed, by the way.
yeah.
Beyond that.
It's the same reason a breakup hurts. Like, there's plenty of other girls, or if you're into whatever you're into, there's plenty of other people out there, right?
Hmm.
But you'll never get to date that one person ever again.
Hmm.
That person is gone forever. And if you miss a tornado, there will be plenty of other tornadoes. I saw a picture of a tornado that I thought was Wellfleet. It turns out it was some other South Dakota tornado from like 2012. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. So, and I even saw a picture of one that looked like Gary with the snake, and it wasn't Gary. So,
Yeah.
even those tornadoes have like duplicates of them. And I'm
Sure.
like, all right, like there's going to be another one. Like Wellfleet, I don't think there is a single like greatest tornado of all time. I think there's just like a very, very few tornadoes that are all tied for the greatest. And Wellfleet and Gary are two of them,
Hmm.
but they're far from the only ones. There will be more that
Sure.
good. But even that being said, like I could like break up with a girlfriend and someone could say there, the common response, there's a million other fish in the sea. But yeah, but I loved her. I'm not going to get to date her, like I'm not with her. And it's the same with a tornado. It's like, I'm never going to have that chance again or anything else in life. An athlete who loses a championship. Well, there's next year. Yeah, but I didn't get to win. I'll never get to win this year's again. You know?
But do you think that that's why these younger folk are sorry, and I say folk all the time, but these younger men and women, do you think that that's why they're spending everything, that they're going into credit card debt? The credit card debt, the credit card rates when I was younger, when I was in college, was tops 18, 19%. And now it's 29% for credit cards.
Yeah.
You will never get out of debt if you don't know how to pay those
Yeah.
out and pay. And like, why are people, I don't think we're talking about it. I think there's this underlying danger to spending every ounce. And, you hit on it even before the beginning of the podcast. You talked about that concern is I don't want to throw it all into storm chasing, come hell or high water. And if I end up broke and alone at the end of it all, then to hell with it all. But I have a feeling that that's a path that a lot of people are on. That's concerning,
Had I thrown it all into storm chasing, I wouldn't be able to be a pilot the other 10 months of the year.
man.
To be fair, I became a pilot before I really got into storm chasing at all. But
Okay.
let's say I had got into it as a teenager, like a lot of
Yeah.
these people are. Had I thrown all into chasing, I would not have become a pilot. I would not have been able to get into a master's program. I would not be like, you know, I'll counter my sadness with a like just factual reality. But me being able to stay home last summer saved me an extra $10,000, and I'm using
Hmm.
that to move to New York City. That's some of the money I have saved up. So like that matters. And
Hmm.
had I just put everything into chasing, I wouldn't been able to do all this stuff in my life. And I just think, I don't know. I think to answer your question more directly, like I think it's just an addiction. As I said
Hmm.
earlier, like with Tiger Woods being addicted to golf and it interferes with
Yeah.
the rest of his life, storm chasing, anything in life, people think of addictions as like drug, sex,
Drugs.
like
Right.
actual addiction things, right? But like, and you can become addicted to anything. And storm chasing is no different. And
Hmm.
it's just becomes like, it's because it's a chase. It's the thrill of the chase. And it's like,
Obsessiveness.
it
Yeah.
becomes obsessive. And then you miss one tornado and the gambler's fallacy, right? Like
Hmm.
you lose money. Well, now you have to gamble to win it back, right?
Yeah.
And then you lose
Oh,
more and
that's
you lose
that's a
more.
great analogy because I'm in the same boat. Like, oh my god, now no, next one I'll get next one. That's been me and White Sands, by the way. Like, I'm gonna get that bolt,
Yeah.
my bucket list shot. Right? We have to keep getting. We have to keep trying. Oh no, I got this. I got that. And you might be given a little win too, right? Oh, I got this pretty sunset, but it
Yeah.
wasn't the right one, so I have to go back and back and back. One of these
I was,
days, I will get that beautiful
yep.
bolt over the yucca with the white sands at sunset, but it is not this day.
And I think, you only get one life. And when you miss an opportunity like that, like it's bad to the psyche because like you
Mhm.
instinctively want these things and then you don't get them. And it's hard to rationalize not getting them. I mean, you can't have everything in life, but the emotions don't work that way. And the brain doesn't like there's the logical part of the brain and then there's the emotional part of the brain. And like the logical part of the brain is like, I'm only in my 20s. I'm going to have
Mhm.
decades to see more Wellfleet type tornadoes and I'll probably see a bunch of them.
Mhm.
But like the emotional part of the brain is like, my life is ruined because I missed this one tornado. And like you can't think about anything else in that time. And you're
How
just
do
like,
you
you get overwhelmed.
yeah. How do you shore up the support structure that you need? I mean, you're talking about being responsible, first of all. beyond somebody else supporting you and saying, mentally saying, I know you can do this, pal. I'm your best, I'm your best supporter. I'm your best friend, or your best, your best coach or your best cheerleader, right? Beyond that, how do you shore up that support overall to
I think just
maintain?
talking to other chasers about it is really good, and, like, having people with shared experiences,
Hmm,
because I think a lot of people don't understand. They don't understand, like, missing a tornado, why it's so emotionally hard, but then when you break it down to someone who's not a storm chaser and you're like, "You gotta understand, in 6 years of doing this, I've probably spent $30,000, right?
yeah.
I mean, I spend roughly seven to $800 a week out on the road. That's
Hmm.
just on gas and food,
Right.
and that doesn't include like the occasional hotel that I might get, something like that. I usually sleep in my car. So, all that money, all that time away from other stuff. I mean, I tell even my own family members, I'm like, yeah, like don't like I'm not coming to see you in May or June. Like mom, dad, if you want to hang out with me in June, you're coming storm chasing with me. Like
Yeah.
I'm not visiting you in May or June because I'm busy. So it's like it's time away from your family,
The
from your friends.
sacrifices. Yeah.
People don't know the sacrifices that you make for this. And it's similar to sacrifices that people make in other. I've been using sports as a reference, but it's the same. I mean, athletes can't, if their cousin's birthday is on the day of the Masters, Rory McIlroy's not going to that party. He's got a golf
Yeah.
tournament to play in,
Right.
and it's the same. Like our season's May, June, and
Hmm.
for some people April, but I've been on the university schedule, so whatever with April, that's fine.
Yeah.
But for me, it's May, June, and I'm like, yeah, when it's those 2 months of the year, like you can text me, but I'm not hanging out with you. Sorry.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that. Talking to other people about that, and the good thing is, like, you tell them the things you missed and they'll counter back with something else. I was talking
Yeah.
to my friend Jeff Frame. He's a professor at University of Illinois and he's pretty active on Storm Chaser Twitter. And he actually stopped through Athens a few months ago on one of his road trips. So I got to show him
Cool.
around town. He's a really nice guy. And I've become pretty good friends with him. And I was venting to him. He saw Wellfleet, and then I was venting to him about
Wow.
me missing Wellfleet. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, don't feel bad. And then he told me a story of how he missed a tornado because some family situation or whatever. And it was like as destructive to him as it was to me. And I'm like, okay, well, it makes you feel better when you realize, like, yeah, I'm not the only one that goes through
Yeah.
this. And in fact, at Storm Chaser Summit, I mean, I bet you there were 800 people in that room. The amount of people who saw Wellfleet and Gary was maybe 5 people. And the amount of people who saw either one of them was maybe 50. And those are the hardcore storm chasers who go to the summit. So you have to remember, like, I'll draw on something my sister said to me once that I always go back to. It's easier to compare up than to compare down. And it's
Mm.
easier for me to look at someone like, Reed Timmer, Brandon Kopic, Kopic, sorry, I
Yeah.
mispronounced his name.
It's the
Sorry, Brandon.
podcast of name of
Yeah, right.
mispronunciation. It's
It's the
okay.
podcast of mispronunciation names. But I look at people like them, like they're really good chasers. They see all the tornadoes, and
Yeah.
it's easy to be like, well, I want to be like him or I want to be like her. But then, like, I could also compare myself to someone who, like, isn't a very good storm chaser and I've seen way more than them. And I'm like, well, I never compare myself. Why don't I ever compare myself to this person? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's just not important. It doesn't matter. Everything we see is we create this our own unique world, you're right, of and our own perceptions of everything, and we think that honestly, like I've been seeing Aaron Rigsby this year, and just seeing how far he's come, and
He's an amazing
pursuing
guy.
his dreams and making it happen. And I think to myself for a moment, I think, man, I would love to be in those shoes, right? And to have that kind of success, and then to be able to do what he
Yeah.
does.
He's the first storm chaser I ever befriended. I met him in
Really.
2020 and he was
Wow.
super nice and he's
Yeah.
he's just he's amazing. He busts his ass to get
But
where he
that's
is.
exactly it though. This wasn't overnight. And not only that, like you said, I don't know the sacrifices he's continuing to make, but for some reason I have
Yeah.
elevated him to some sort of super king, as far as a chaser. And I think that's unfair as well, because we don't see the grind that he does. We don't see the failures. We don't see the family he's leaving behind, or the friends, or all that other stuff. And sure, yeah, I'm sure he feels proud of himself for becoming that. He talks about that. That's super important. But I think it comes back down to, we do need to focus on the obsession, and be concerned with the obsession of whatever it is we're pursuing.
hmm I
I
don't think Aaron
hyperfixate
would.
on there.
Hopefully, Aaron doesn't mind me telling this story, but March 31st, 2023, him and I both chased in Illinois on the Kyoto, Iowa day, and we both missed it. And I said, "Do you want to go to Applebee's after it got dark?" And we went there, sat down. We were both so mad about missing the tornado and so upset that I don't think we barely said a word to each other the entire dinner. We sat there in silence for the entire dinner and just
The
like looked at our
sulking
phones and just like it was kind of pathetic. Like
bro.
we were just like
Oh, that's
sulking and
tough.
missing this tornado.
My
So
goodness.
even someone like him, who he's only a year or two older than me, but he's been chasing about twice as long,
Yeah,
even he has his misses too. And I mean, all the other people I've mentioned that I look up to, they have their misses as well. So it's all of us.
absolutely. I want to ask you directly, what advice would you give someone who's going through their own struggles? We all struggle differently. We all have our own hells to go through. We all have our own different paths. But people that have been doing their best to try to become better at storm chasing, and they just feel like they're failing. I have a feeling there's more people who feel like failures than you do see the people who express themselves who are succeeding. And I think that's the hidden alley of the storm chasing community is we're all raging, we're all getting into the drama because we're missing things or we're feeling FOMO, the fear of missing out. We're comparing ourselves to all these other great photographers and chasers and we feel like dirt. But, what piece of advice would you give to those people speaking directly to them?
Well, I mean, if you're a young chaser, high school or college, you gotta put your career and your life, you gotta get that stabilized before you can chase. I was, in a okay financial situation when I started chasing, and you can't let yourself get into like literal financial debt.
Absolutely.
You cannot do it. You cannot do it. If you don't have the money, you need to figure out if you're gonna go to college, you need to figure out your college
Mm,
plans. If you're not gonna go to college, you got to figure out if you're going to military or work or whatever it is you do. You got to figure out what your plan is, and you have to have a plan, and that has to come first. You know, a lot of people who chase full time fit into a couple of categories. Either number one, they had wealthy parents and just had the upbringing to where they have the money and the ability to
right.
do it. Or number two, they're in a massive amount of debt. And or number three, they're older and they spent 20 years working and they have a good job.
Right.
And now they're able to do something like that because they've worked for that. Jim
Yeah.
Tang is like that. He's had a career in tech in the past
Hmm.
in California, and then he got into chasing. So
Everybody
you
loves
gotta
Tank.
I love Tang. He's great, and he killed it on Wellfleet. He killed it that day.
Wow.
But, you gotta just make sure that you gotta try to use that half of the brain that's logical to cloud the half of the brain that's emotional. I think the
Hmm.
emotional brain, like, you can use that for, like, your dreams and your desires, but you can't allow that to you have to try to use the logical half over the emotional half, and I'm not saying never take a risk. I mean, sometimes in life, on the other hand, on the contrary to my argument, you do need to take a risk. You never have
Yeah.
a reward if you don't take a risk. But you can't there's a difference between taking a risk and being reckless.
Hmm.
And you can't be reckless. It's not just gonna ruin your storm chasing, it's gonna ruin your life.
Yeah. Don't give up. Don't give up your career ambitions for chasing unless you are full send. That's what you want to do as a professional. You somehow want to monetize this. And even then, the
Good
challenges
luck.
are, I know, the challenges that people keep talking about is, well, the market is saturated already. We already have the Connors and the McKinneys and all these people already doing live streams. And then we also have all these other people that are monetizing their content through TV weather reports and things like that. But I still think that that's not even the existential threat that we face right now, which is AI, and we won't
Yeah.
even get into that. But I think if you think that you can jump into this and find your niche and find your way, I think it's possible. I think anything's possible still for people who are committed and learn how to be an authentic person, authentic creator, and can differentiate themselves and find that audience that people want to continue to come back to, right? But as far as sustainability over the years, that's the other challenge. But yeah, I want the best for people. And I have a feeling even this conversation, most younger people are going to be like, I don't want to hear it. Nope. I just want to chase. Nope. I want to see the next setup. I want to get out there. I don't care how I need to get the money. I'm going to find the money and blow it off and spend the credit cards and all that. And then I'll worry about everything after. And then there's going to be a huge, you know, there's then the
Set a budget.
crash.
If you worked through high school and saved up, if you have $3,000, say I'm gonna spend 3,000 on chasing, and once you run out, drive home. You're
Yeah.
done. Like, you gotta be smart about it, and you wanna chase storms your whole life. not just when you're 18 or not just when you're 30 or 40 or whatever age you are when you start it. That's the other thing too. It's not just young people that can do this reckless behavior. I've seen
Mhm.
middle-aged people get into storm chasing and then burn a ton of stuff. It's just
Right.
easier for them because they usually have more money saved up by that age. The
Yeah.
same toxic traits can happen at any age. It's not just we see it more in young people, but older people are not immune from it.
Yeah.
Anyone and can be, victim of these mindsets.
I don't want to switch gears this quickly, but I was also thinking about, and I know we're not going to be able to really get into it on this podcast, but you incorporate, or do you incorporate a lot of the rules that you've learned of flying as to storm chasing?
Yeah, I was hoping
I'm
this
not
would
a
come up.
pilot. Huh? What's that?
I was hoping this would come up because my
I
presentation was
do want
skipped.
to let's talk on that really briefly, because I wanted, as a someone who receives input from all different sources, right? I watch pilot several air crash videos where they break it down, and I've learned that they've put, the airline industry has put in so many different things in place, crew resource management, all of these different rules to ensure that people stay alive, right? And I've discovered that learning to read and learning the laws of avionics and the rules of being a pilot actually apply to being a storm chaser or even a law enforcement officer. Is when I go into something and I'm driving, fly the damn plane, right? What is it? E8 navigate, communicate, ANC. I think that automatically when I'm like, oh my God, I got to get here. I'm like, what can you say about all of that and how they integrate?
So at the Storm Chasing Summit in Denver, Colorado in February, me and Skip Talbot presented about this. And it was how aviation safety can be applied to storm chasing. It's on YouTube. Go watch it. Just type in my name is Skip Talbot. It'll pop
I'll
up.
try and find that link and put it here.
We talked about how hazardous attitudes that have been identified by the FAA as causing a lot of plane crashes also are like one-to-one translation to storm chasing. And I won't
Yeah.
go through the whole lesson, go watch the video, but as a teaser, I'll go through one of the hazardous attitudes, which is impulsivity. So that's like, I need to do it right now, right? And
Yeah.
so you're being really impulsive about your decisions, and that causes you to have a lapse in judgment. We talked about actually back to that 2023 sequence, April 2023, when a couple of storm chasers got hit by the Lewistown, Illinois, Lewistown, I don't know, tornado around there, and it was impulsivity that got them into it. They just made a rash decision. And this has been found by the FAA to cause certain plane crashes too. Something's wrong with the airplane. I need to turn back and land immediately. And they're rushing things. And they're not like, okay, take your time, think it through, make an educated decision.
Right.
And people think the problem with plane crashes and with storm chasing incidents is that people often think like the reason the plane crashed is because in the last 30 seconds, the pilots did this mistake. But that is not true. The reason the plane crashed is because 27 years ago, the pilot had the wrong mentality when he or she went into the training. And then that carried with them their whole career. And it led to a cascade of mistakes. It's never one mistake. If you're unable to escape the tornado because you got boxed in, people will look at that and say, well, you could have made this decision to get out of being boxed in. But I look at that and say, why were you boxed in the first place?
Yeah.
Why were you on the north side of the storm in the first place? You're the one that put yourself in a dangerous situation. And now you're deflecting the blame.
Mhm.
And that's not to victim blame, but
Sure.
it is true if you leave your car door unlocked, you're more likely to get robbed. And again, it's not your fault if someone breaks into your car, but lock your doors. And it's the same thing with
Hmm.
storm chasing. Like, take the precautions to prevent yourself from getting in the situation in the first place, and it won't happen to you. It's just the
Right.
reality.
Mitigate the risk.
Yeah, risk mitigation. That's another term that Skip uses in our presentation.
Hmm.
So
I
yeah,
use
there
it in
is a
law
lot of
enforcement. Yeah.
parallels between meteorology and aviation in terms of storm
Oh,
chasing and
cool.
flying and stuff like that. It's a whole talk.
I definitely hope that people, and I'm definitely going to link that here too, because I think you and I could talk about that. But it was so much was said already at that conference, and I think people go back and watch that, they can go into how you all elaborate in that. That's fantastic. I love it. And getting back to flying, what's your favorite airplane to fly? Like,
I've
I
only
know
flown
they're
a
all
couple.
different. Everybody tells me that they all have their own feel.
My favorite was the Piper Cub, the seaplane that I flew. That was really freaking awesome. I really enjoyed that. My favorite airplane is a Boeing 747. I've flown on
Me
one, but I've
too.
never flown one. When I went to Germany a couple years ago, purposely bought a Lufthansa. I like saved up for this.
Lufthansa.
I bought a business class ticket so I could sit on the upper deck of the
My
747.
goodness. That must
And
have been expensive.
I travel on the cheap, and I'm used to like picture me used to like sleeping in my car or at like a
Yeah.
campground in Oklahoma. I don't take luxurious vacations. So picture
Mhm.
me spending an extra $600 getting served like wine on a top deck of an airplane over the
Right.
ocean. It was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, wow, this is really nice.
My
I'm
gosh.
used to the Motel 6 in Amarillo,
Yeah.
you know? So like
Right.
this is a lot nicer than something I normally
My
do.
goodness.
But it was awesome. It was definitely a I
The
like
queen of the
aviation nerded
skies.
out. Yeah, the queen
Yeah,
of the
the queen of the
skies.
skies. I've always loved the 747. I was a I was deeply in love with the corny airport movies of the '70s. Airport 75, 77, 79. The Concorde was corny as heck. Watching Airport 77 when the 747 hits a tower and then crash lands in the ocean. Did you ever see those corny movies? Are you serious? They show, I mean, they took,
Well, I've seen Airplane, the original.
yeah, not Airplane,
That's different
not
though.
the funny one. No, no, these
Yeah.
ones are, oh, you've got to go back and watch Airport 77 with Jack Lemmon and airplane gets hijacked and then it hits a tower and then it lands on the water in the Bermuda Triangle and or in the ocean somewhere and then it sinks and everybody's inside it. And so the whole premise is the Navy has to figure out a way to bring that the entirety of a 747 back up to the surface while they get everybody to escape. And then, I'll let you watch it on your own, but you got to watch. It's one of my favorite all-time air disaster movies. It's really great. Airport
That does sound
75 is,
interesting.
but they're all 747 and there's just tons of beautiful sequences where you're just watching the airplane fly through the valleys and the canyons and stuff. And it's just gorgeous. I fell in love with the 747 thanks to those movies. And I
Yeah.
always wanted to fly in one and I never have. I probably never will. And because by that time, Lufthansa will probably have switched over to Airbus by then.
Germany's pretty awesome. I Berlin is one of my favorite places I've ever been. So I highly recommend if you get the opportunity to do that, then to do it. But
I want to
they're
visit
cool
Germany
planes.
too.
It's
Let me
Germany's awesome.
let me before I let you go here. These are a couple of photos that we've already seen a couple, but these are a couple of photos that have a real significance to you. Can you talk about this one?
Yeah, so another thing that I debatably actually like more than tornadoes is the aurora. I
Okay,
just think the aurora is just incredibly
beautiful.
magical. This was May of 2024. Before was an insane year because we had the total solar eclipse that was
Mm-hmm.
up in Quebec, and then El Dorado happened. This happened. It was a crazy like 2 month period of my life. Some of the one of
Mm-hmm.
the best 2024 is one of the best years of my life.
I was in
Well,
Arizona and
until the second half of the year, we won't get into that. But first half of the
okay,
year was really good, and then
yeah, but
little
May,
political event happened later in the year. But
yeah,
May 2020
yeah.
was
But May,
fantastic.
I could see this in Arizona, dude. I was in
Yep.
Florence, east of Florence, seeing this, and then in Rio Rico, I had this time lapse of not all of this color, but it was mostly that pinkish color. But I didn't even get to see green. But you captured this at what is this, a lake or a lagoon or what
So
is this?
I was storm chasing in Oklahoma, and my dad was to meet me for storm chasing. And I called him like two
Wow.
days before he was supposed to fly to Oklahoma. I said, "Change of plans, fly to Minneapolis. I'll meet you there. I'm flying up from Dallas." I drove to Dallas. We flew to Minneapolis. We drove up north in Minnesota to see the aurora. And that why I was like, there was like some other chance of storm somewhere else. I'm like, I don't care about the storms. I'm going for this aurora. And we're photographing the aurora over this lake, and this fog rolls in over the lake at like
No
1 in the morning. And I'm
way.
like, oh my God,
Holy
this is like
cow.
for a photographer, this is
Right.
like my brain is about to explode. So I'm like,
Absolutely.
take the rental car, go on the
Turn it
other side of the
on.
lake, point it towards the lake, and turn the
Yeah.
headlights on the
I
brights.
could tell.
And it
Yeah.
illuminated the fog.
That's
And
awesome.
it was just that night. I didn't sleep until the sun came up. I drove around
My goodness.
central Minnesota all night long, and it was so bright that even when you were driving, you could see it with the naked eye. That's how bright it was. It was just like insanely vibrant.
Dang. This
One of
is
the most amazing
Oklahoma.
nights of my
That's
life.
crazy.
Minnesota, Minnesota.
This is Minnesota here?
Yeah, we flew up to
Okay.
Minnesota and
Okay.
saw it there. So it
I
was
see.
just it was an amazing thing. And I was like, yeah, I glad I changed my mind
Oh,
from
no
storm
kidding.
chasing to aurora chasing last minute. It
Right.
was incredible.
But I mean, I still saw it down on the southern US border, so that was
Mm,
fantastic. I couldn't believe it. And then we saw the what was this?
El
The Cole?
Dorado.
We'll call it El Dorado, yeah. I let me guess. I can't remember. Is this a Colorado photo?
No, close. Almost. Colby, Kansas.
Okay.
So
I
literally
think
almost Colorado, very like 30 miles away from Colorado, probably.
Thomas Neffschild has this photo as well, I
He
think, or
does.
something
Yep.
similar, 'cause I've seen it.
Doesn't have maybe super much meaning to me, but I think it's probably the prettiest. In my opinion, it's the best picture I've ever taken of a storm.
Really?
It's just the green field
It's pretty.
moving
Yeah.
into this like to me, I mean, that's like the structure equivalent, like of a Gary or a Wellfleet tornado. That's like the structure version of that. You know,
Felt
it's just like there
perfectly.
is not
It's
structure. Like you cannot get structure better than that. It literally looks like a government drone
mothership.
and alien spaceship.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that the crazy thing about this storm, and this just shows how serendipitous chasing is. I woke up at 10 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. I kind of slept in this day. There were supposed to be storms, Hays, Kansas, Dodge City, Kansas, and I woke up
Yeah.
somewhere in Kansas, western Kansas, and I go on Twitter and I see a picture of this crazy mothership storm at 10:30 in the morning, a half an
I
hour
thought
north of
that's a
me.
was this the one?
And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna drive north, check this
I
out. I have
thought
nothing
so.
else to do.
Yeah.
Drive half an hour north, stayed on this thing for 4 hours, and I watched it decay, and it had pancakes as it decayed. It had like two layers once it decayed.
No
I ended
way.
up missing a tornado because I was stuck on this storm. I'm like, I don't care
I
about
would
missing
stay
a
on this
tornado. I'm
too.
staying on this thing. This is amazing. It was like it was still probably the most beautiful storm I've ever seen. And
Oh my
and
god.
it happened by accident. I didn't even
Yeah.
try to chase it and I got it. So that
That
goes
is a
to
pretty
show how
storm.
much sometimes it is a crapshoot to where, you know, you could be the best chaser ever and miss something good. And then sometimes you could just accidentally stumble into something good. And I stumbled into this one.
I think that's actually essential. That's a part of my goal is I know when I'm going storm chasing, I'm not just going for the tornado. I'm going for structure. I'm going for a lot of surprises that are going to be had along the way. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for that as well. Here's another aurora.
So that is my probably my favorite place in the world. That's Lake McDonald at Glacier National Park. This was in 2022.
Wow.
I first went to Glacier back in 2021. I was storm chasing with my mom, and we caught a couple tornadoes in western North Dakota. And then there was nothing to chase, so I'm like, well, let's go to Glacier.
Wow.
And I loved it so much. I've been going back every year. I have some friends in the area now.
Really?
I went there that night because I would always just get a campsite there
Hmm.
and wasn't even trying to see Aurora, and also kind of stumbled upon this one. But yeah, I think that's
Wow.
just a like, that's probably the best picture
Reflection.
I've ever taken. Like, the last one was the
Really?
best storm picture ever, but I think that's my favorite picture that I've
I
ever
love it.
taken.
I love that
It's
it
one
has
of
such a meaning to you too.
I don't like to frame my own photos because I feel like it's kinda like, I don't know, it feels a little bit narcissistic, but this is one of the few photos I
Let me
actually
hide
of
my
my own.
photos.
Yeah,
Let me hide my photos behind me. You don't see anything. These aren't the droids you're looking
these aren't
for.
the ones,
Move
but
along.
this is one of my own photos that I actually am, like, proud of enough that I do have it framed and hanging up.
Heck yeah. Let's see. Purple. So, Drew, what are you working on now? You said you're preparing to actually spend some time out on the plains. How are you
Yeah,
preparing for all that?
well, my last day at Ohio University is May 3rd. It's May 3rd all over again. That's a well-known date in the storm chasing world. Um, but yeah, I mean, right now I'm just going through my stuff, packing everything. I got a storage unit I gotta put my stuff in, and I'm officially moving out of Athens then. I'm
Wow.
hitting the road. I don't start grad
Dang.
school until August. So I have nothing to do. I have a remote part-time remote job and nothing to do for the next
And
couple
you've
of
got some
months.
savings. You've
Got
put some
tons
money
of
into
savings.
savings.
Gonna, use those and chase my ass off
Awesome.
this year. This will be the last May that I get to chase until 2029 because
Oof,
of
that's
grad
tough.
school. But I get the next couple Junes, so that's okay.
There you
I
go.
get as I said earlier, June is the best. All the best stuff is in June. But
Mm,
I'm just gonna go hard and chase everything I can. Enjoy this,
awesome.
getting to have a full season out in the plains, and that's
Heck
kind of the
yeah.
plan. And working on all that. So yeah, we'll see. It'll be. It's a. I hope it's a good season out there.
That sounds awesome. It sounds like you have done the preparations, you've done the work, you've put in the work, and you're ready to go. So I hope to see you out there this year for sure.
Yeah, you too. It's gonna be super fun. So
I think so.
you got lightning questions? No?
Lightning round. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I do have lightning round. I'm all like, what's next? Oh yeah, lightning round. I'd love to go through a real quick lightning round and see where you're at with these things. What is your not fastest way? What do you prefer? Do you prefer mountains or oceans?
Mountains all day long. I mean,
Really?
it's just the beach is boring to me. I can spend like 3 hours on the beach. I'm like, all right, enough. This is boring. And I don't
Yeah,
like hot
but
weather. That's the other, my hot weather take that gets me in the most controversy. Was saying earlier on how I liked when it was cold this winter. And
yeah,
anything over like 80, I just hate
dude,
it. I want to live in a place where it's
man.
like 70 all summer. That'd be like San Francisco, perfect, you know?
You wouldn't like Arizona then, that's for
No,
sure.
but at least it's a dry heat. It's the humidity that gets you. That's the Midwesterner in me. But
I do hate, South Carolina
yeah,
humidity. Georgia, no fun.
no fun.
So you talk a lot about structure, but what do you prefer, NATOs or structure?
I
If you
would
had to
take
pick
good
one.
structure over a bad tornado, but I would take a good tornado over any structure.
I was gonna say that's no fair, but you know what? I'll allow it because that's a pretty good answer. No one's ever answered it that way before. So what's your favorite weather phenomenon?
That's a tough one, but I guess I answered it at the beginning. It's snow. The best day of
Oh, yeah,
my
that's right.
life, probably the single best day of my life, was when I was in February 2010, north of Pittsburgh, where I was a kid. I was in like fifth grade. We got 26 and a half inches of snow in one
Wow.
night into the sixth. And that was the, I said that I don't remember dates, and here I am listing off a bunch of random
I
dates in
know.
this talk. But that was like the best day. If it wasn't the best day of my life, it was the best day of my childhood. We had four snow days
Wow.
in a row. We had a big hill in our backyard, and I went sledding and it was just, yeah, I don't know. There's just something that snow, aurora, tornadoes, or I mean, aurora, tornadoes, solar eclipse are all truly magical and amazing. But like to
You
me, I'm
like
the
the
most myself when
darn
it's snowing.
snow. Come on.
People hate me for it, but
That's okay. I
more
mean,
for
that's
me,
okay.
less for
You
them.
I love it. So, okay, finally, well, the second all right, one more question. Sunset or sunrise?
I hate waking up early, so I think I have to say sunset because I'm never up for the sunrise. But I will say, because I'm up early so rare, it takes something really special to get me up early enough to even see a sunrise. Usually
Nice.
traveling somewhere, getting to the airport early, something big. So whenever
Yeah.
I see a sunrise, it's on a big day in my life. But I hate getting up early, so I'm going to have to go sunset.
Okay. I'll allow that too. And finally, what's the top item on your bucket list? What's something you really want to capture this year?
Well, I lived in Pennsylvania and Ohio in my life, and that area combined with West Virginia, that tri-state area is kind of where I consider to be home. And I've never seen a tornado in Pennsylvania. I've never seen a tornado in West Virginia, and I've never seen a tornado in Ohio. So I would really like someday, I don't know how it's going to happen with me about to move to New York, but
Right.
someday I would like to see a tornado in one of those three states.
Okay. All right. I mean, they do have severe weather in New York as well. I've seen Nicholas, I forget his last name, Isabella. Yeah, he's taken some pictures of supercell structure moving into New York City. That's crazy.
And actually, today is the 58th anniversary of the Gallia County, Ohio F5 tornado, which is the only F5 tornado that happened in Southeast Ohio.
How do you know
So,
these things?
yeah, I just happened to
That's
see
crazy.
that. I didn't know that until earlier today. I happened to actually see that online. But I mean,
Wow.
Ohio, obviously, Xenia is like the most famous tornado of all time. So, Ohio is no stranger to tornadoes.
Mm, wow.
Surprised
That
it took me
is
an hour and a half to mention Xenia. That's a whole thing in
yeah.
Ohio. But yeah.
I didn't even think there was a lot of that much severe weather until this year. Like Illinois has been killing it, crushing it with
Hmm.
tornado warnings and all sorts of wild stuff happening up there, and even Wisconsin, Michigan. There's been a lot of severe weather up there, so something I didn't ordinarily think would happen, but it
Midwest
seems
is the
to.
best.
I don't know about that. I think there'd be many people who would disagree with that, but I think that's a great way to end. Andrew, this has been a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And hopefully, next time I see you, it'll be at some remote gas station
I
talking
hope
about the
so.
storms in like
Hopefully
a
not
couple
busting,
weeks.
but and I'll always take your advice, by the way, or at least heed some of it and listen to it if you send me in the right direction or tell me to stay put because I'm still learning too, and I love the fact that we can learn off of each other and rely on each other for support. So
Yeah,
thanks
maybe
for always
I
doing
have
that.
never chased the monsoon, so maybe I need to add Arizona to my bucket list and
You
come
won't
get the
like it.
monsoon.
You won't like it. You'll be like this. Okay, you said it was a dry heat, but the dry heat sucks still. So that's
That's
going to wrap
fair.
it up. Thanks so much, Andrew. I appreciate you and good luck on all of your endeavors moving to New York and your masters and chasing this year. I wish you nothing but luck and the best. So I'm really excited to see what you pull out of your magic rabbit hat in the coming year.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for interviewing me, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks. That's going to wrap it up here on the Storm Before the Con podcast. As always, shine your light while you still have it, and we will catch you all on the next one. Take care, everybody.